This is Thursday, March 30th. There are 112 days until San Diego Comic-Con 2023. Welcome to SDConCast, the official podcast of the San Diego Comic-Con unofficial blog.
VANUHTWE go. Oh my God, I love Live Journal and my Live Journal wants me. Current food is hyperactive, current music, refuse 73. I love the color scheme, it's pink and purple, it looks sweet.
Hello all, I am your host, James Riley, and joining me on the podcast, as always, Carrie Dixon.
Hey guys, thank you so much for joining us.
And joining us this evening, Kim Twombly, outside Comic-Con herself.
Hello, everyone.
All right, so welcome to the WonderCon wrap-up show. We'll take comments and questions during the show. You can tweet us at SD_comic_con. You can use the hashtag SDConCast, and we will also be keeping an eye on the YouTube live chat if you want to comment there. So let's get right into it. And Carrie will be our moderator this evening.
I will be the moderator because I didn't go this year. I know I fail, but
We missed ya.
I know I missed you guys too. But I followed along the whole weekend on Twitter, and you guys did awesome work there, awesome coverage. And I also want to give a shout out to our other folks who covered there, Sean, which is Parks and Cons, and then Johnny Do. So what did you guys think of this year, especially compared to last year? Because last year, WonderCon it wasn't necessarily one of the first conventions back, but it was still very much in that kind of like weird time where it was like, our conventions like really back? And so now we're a full year removed. So what did you guys think of this year?
Well, I thought that it felt bigger, more well attended, especially the panels. The fountain out front, the walking through the show floor felt at least the same, if not a little more crowded on the show floor. But the panels for sure had a lot more people in them than last year.
It for sure looks that way from Twitter. Last year, the panels were like scary empty. So to see more people this year was very exciting.
Yes.
Kim, what did you think?
Lots more people by the food trucks. I think they had the tables laid out differently. Does that seem right?
Yeah, they did.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you got louder now.
I'll talk louder. Sorry. And they used the arena, which they did not use last year, which was big deal. Still didn't, I don't know how Funko was, but still relatively empty compared to past conventions like D23, I'm sure. But getting there, I loved seeing the growth.
Absolutely. It's a great thing to see. So let's talk first about the exhibit floor. For you guys, what were some of your standout booths that you thought either like had cool stuff or that just did a really good job? Kim,
You go
take
first,
it away.
Kim.
Oh, Toddland. We kind of did a slow drive by of Toddland, but as always, a favorite. And
Yes.
trying to think, it was easier to walk around for some reason, especially in the small press area. Although it was weirdly laid out, they did them kind of sideways to how you would normally go up and down the paths. But
I saw that, and I
it
want to
was-
talk about small press later.
okay, it was great spacing. Still some cramming, which is kind of you got to have that at a convention over
Yep.
in the artist alley area. I don't know. Come back to me. I didn't ponder booths.
That's okay. James, what about you?
Well, I spent a lot of time walking up and down the aisles, mainly trying to keep an eye out for where I could do prize mule drops.
That's fair. Very fair.
So the fun stuff was being able to find a spot where there wasn't too many people, or where someone didn't like set up their booth, or there was a little bit of a gap. Everything seemed pretty standard from what I remember from last year. I think the standout for the people who looked like they spent the most money putting their booth together was Funko, because that was
For sure.
really well built up and designed. It was, stuck over there at the back of the small press area in Hall A, and it was like its own little island of Funko, basically.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there was any other. I mean, I just enjoyed actually managing to walk around and look at a lot of the different exhibitors and seeing, the dice vendors and the ones who were selling a lot of the non, big brand stuff. So just seeing a lot of the smaller places that were selling things, I think was what was my favorite thing.
I spent more
One-
time. Sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say I spent more time in the gaming area than I did before. And I know one of the vendors, and I'm sorry, I don't know which one they had, claw machines. So I spent $5 on those
fun.
claw machines, which is a
That
great
is
idea.
fun. Yeah, that's awesome. One thing that we've not really touched on here is Artist Alley, and I feel like we should, because I feel like WonderCon has a very good Artist Alley compared to basically any convention. A lot of times when I talk to artists, they say that like this is one of their favorite conventions to do because of Artist Alley. Did you guys get to spend much time there?
Yeah, I spent a few hours actually walking up and down the aisles on Sunday. And yeah, for sure, there's just a plethora of talent and a variety throughout Artist Alley, from the big names, because at the front corner you had, Tom King and Mitch Gerads and a bunch of the other larger names. And then there was big names sprinkled all throughout all of Artist Alley, and then all of the smaller creators and all of the people that are just, having their little thing, their stickers or their art or their little, prints or whatever it was. There was just such a variety. And I think it was like 5 aisles or something like that.
Yeah,
Like
something
50
like that.
tables per aisle.
Yeah, it's huge at WonderCon.
Yeah, it's big.
I saw somebody comment on Twitter over the weekend who basically said what you just said. They were like, one of the nicest thing about WonderCon's Artist Alley is that like it's got a really good mix of, yes, like they're really professional people, and then also like smaller fan artists, so that you get like just a much different variety of levels than you would like at something that's like San Diego Comic-Con, where it's a lot more like the big people, which is cool. So I do want to talk about small press, because I do feel like, again, I'm really into the art. I feel like one of the biggest complaints that I hear about WonderCon from that side of it is small press. It's just kind of like off really far in its own little section. Like Kim said, the booths were all like pointed the other way this year. There's no signage. There's really nothing over there except Funko. Like it's just kind of funky.
It's the front of that area is some comics dealers,
Yes,
such, and that almost feels shoved to the side as well.
mm-hmm.
Which,
that whole section does.
Comics should be, obviously they should be important in where they are. Maybe it's just the space that they have so that they can make sure that they put them all together, and that's where they have the room. But they could make the room in Hall B the center of the show, essentially, if they wanted to. I just don't know what goes behind laying out that room and putting where things are. Obviously, Funko over there is a smart move, because they will tend to have the large crowds, and they have a lot of space over there to put.
Yes, they do. Yep.
So, put the other large Funko vendors, Funko sellers out there, put Funko out there, and then small press kind of sandwiched between comics and Funko kind of gets lost.
It really does. Yeah, I keep calling it no man's land on Twitter, but I know there are a lot of artists who will exhibit as small press at San Diego Comic-Con, but even people that I know who have been exhibiting in small press at WonderCon have now moved over to Artist Alley, because it's just so much better laid out.
Traffic.
Yeah, and the other problem with that area over there is that's the way to the arena. Yeah. And so for a lot of people, they're on their way there, especially on Saturday, and they don't take time. There's no time to stop and look around to see what else is in that area. So I'm over there in Artist Alley, and then I'm on my way to a giant panel or upstairs, and they never make it over there. So it's really difficult to get people to go over there unless, again, they're going there for comics
More Funko.
for Funko. And so I mean, one thing that would help is definitely having signage and maybe having,
Yes,
you know,
for sure.
artists, you know, having some of one of those big signs up at the front where it's like, you know, artist alley this way, small press that way.
Yeah.
You know, and that kind of thing.
Mhm.
But other than that, I'm not sure what to do except for maybe just shove everything over to the right a little bit and put small press next to artist alley.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about programming now. What did you guys make it to this year, and what did you think?
What did you make it to, Kim?
Oh, I made it to on Friday, went to Knights of the Zodiac. And that's kind of one of those things I know nothing about the comic or the graphic novel. Know nothing about this movie except I recognize some of the names from the panel. Well, that sounds neat. Let's do that. I accidentally went to the arena thinking it would be in there, but that was not the case. I've never seen the arena so empty when there's nothing in there. But that was a really excellent panel. Everyone was so excited to be there. Nick Stahl, I loved in Carnival 20 years ago.
Yes, great show.
Since T3. He looked great in the movie. His character looks great. And I'm gonna say her name. Famke Johnson. How do you say from X-Men? I recognize her.
I know who I'm talking about.
Famke Janssen.
Thank you.
There we go. Thanks, James.
She was wonderful, and other cast members just were a lot of fun. The clips they showed made the movie look really fun, and I'll probably go see it because of going to that panel. The room was awkwardly laid out. We were expecting more chairs, but it did make sense. It was just weird to see the room half full. I know you guys talked about that on the tweeters.
Yep. Yeah.
And then I went to the Walking Dead panels, which were in the arena, and kind of got reinvested in that a bit from seeing those clips of the upcoming series, City of the Dead, Dead City. And then
that's what's supposed to happen. That's the whole reason they bring them.
Yeah, it worked well. So those are my two favorites.
What about you, James? What were some of your highlights for panels?
Did I see anything on Saturday? I'm trying to remember what I went to because Beth actually saw more panels than I did. She went to the Star Trek guest stars panel, which she said was fun. Then she went to the Power Rangers, one of the Power Rangers panels, the one that had Walter Jones, the 30 years of Power Rangers one. And she said that one was entertaining. And we went to the Funko panel. I actually went in there early and watched Quantum Leap, which started off with an episode, but it was only like the cold open, I think. Okay. And so like they started airing it and I'm like, oh no, are we going to have to sit through a whole episode and have 5 minutes of Q&A again? But no, it was just the cold open. It was like 5 minutes or so. And then they did a Q&A, which I thought was pretty good. Actually, Cherry the Geek in the comments says that Quantum Leap was the best panel at WonderCon and the only one that felt like a true Comic-Con style panel. Which is good to know that a lot of people, they had a decent amount of the cast there, and the two, I think the showrunner and one of the other producers or showrunners, and it was it was a good panel. I mean, especially if you really like Quantum Leap, but even if you didn't like Quantum Leap, it was an entertaining panel. Funko was, well, I mean, it was Funko. It was basically just a presentation. There was no Q&A or anything.
It was short, wasn't it?
It was. They announced at the beginning that some people that they were expecting didn't show. They announced some pretty cool stuff. And I think the highlight, for me personally, the highlight was when Bob Gurr came out, Disney legend Bob Gurr. And he was entertaining and funny. You know, when they get asked him a few questions, like they asked him about the Matterhorn, and because he designed lots of vehicles, like you designed the Matterhorn vehicles, right? And he's like, yeah, I designed the ones that were comfortable.
That's funny. So, that's cute.
But that was really cool, and I think the only other thing I went to was on Sunday. I went to Talkback, which also was very short. I think it lasted like 20, 25 minutes, and it was scheduled
Especially
for an
for
hour, but
talkback. Yeah, that's
no
really
one,
short.
no one was asking questions. I mean, it was like 5 or 6 people asked questions, and some of them asked 2, and then we were done.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to circle back to something that Kim said about the chairs. So yes, this year in most of the big rooms like the arena and North 200A, they really did not put out full capacity of chairs. And James, I know you had been thinking this was going to happen when we did our programming podcast. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about your thoughts about why this happened? Or
Well, I think what they were anticipating is after the low attendance last year, they didn't want to overcommit, I think is what it was. So they put out the 1,000 seats, where basically half the room was had seats in it. And I mean, you can go with, it looks bad because there's all that empty space, but then it looks good because most of the seats are full.
are filled, yes.
Which I think is, kind of what they want. I mean, I don't know what the psychological impact or the changes are for a full room with, with less seats or more seats and which ones are full or whatnot. But it does seem a little weird, but you understand that they didn't want to have a bunch of seats in there that were not filled like that. What happened last year? I mean, basically the Bob's Burgers panel last year was the most well-attended panel. And it still wasn't even full. I mean, it was like maybe got up to 3/4 full max.
Yeah, last year was scary. I mean, I went to Superman and Lois. I mean, I showed up like 30 minutes early and I got like second row, no problem. And I was like, this is not normal.
No.
So I am, again, very glad to hear that panels were more attended this year. And it seems like Comic-Con knew what they were doing because I never saw anything on Twitter about any panels being full. So even though there were fewer seats, it wasn't as though there were too few seats.
Yeah. And the arena looked like it always did. But when I looked around, halfway through the Funko panel, when you would expect it to be crowded, the entire top section what had like 30 people in it, and there was still room in the second in the whatever they want to call that, the loge or whatever, in the second row, and then the floor stuff was basically completely full. But so I mean, maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people maybe showed up, somewhere between there, depending on how many actually came in. Yeah. So it might have been one of the most well-attended panels. So how big did it look for the Walking Dead stuff, Kim?
There was plenty of space. The third bowl had no one. The second bowl just had random scattering. That's where I was sitting.
Okay, so Funko had more.
And then
because the second row was mostly full except for on the sides. So I think it was maybe a few hundred more people. But overall, it was fun, and it was. I mean, we'll get to the other stuff in the best and worst.
Yeah,
the good and the bad.
So I do want to stay on this topic for just a little bit though. So why do we think that the panels are just less attended the last couple of years? I mean, last year I know we had a lot of theories as far as like COVID, and they sold tickets way later than usual because of COVID. So we thought it might just be a lot of people like buying at the door. This year they put tickets up even earlier than normal. I mean, what do you have any theories as far as like why the panels are just not the big draw at WonderCon?
I mean, I think it was a combination of a few things. First off, there's still people who are uncomfortable in large volumes of people in closed spaces. So there's going to be a certain segment of the population who still won't come out to that. And the ones who do will stay outside and enjoy the cosplay and whatever else is going on out there instead of going in and seeing stuff on the inside. I think that the schedule maybe wasn't what a lot of people wanted this year, possibly. I thought there was good stuff on the schedule. I just don't think there was as much of it as a lot of people expect. I think it felt a little pared down.
It does for sure. The last 2 years feel like there's been fewer Hollywood and studio type panels.
Right.
But I feel like there's also fewer Hollywood and studio type panels everywhere for one thing. And for another, I mean, WonderCon has always like kind of been this thing. WonderCon is really like, it's about the cosplay and it's about the art. And I mean, everything else is just kind of secondary. So it's an interesting trend to follow. I'm really curious to see what continues here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, what WonderCon tended to have, like if a Saturday on Comic-Con had like big hit panel after big hit panel in Hall H and Ballroom 20, WonderCon always typically had one a day.
Yeah.
Day on average, typically. And there was some good stuff, and then one big one that would always be like, let's pack
Like
the roof of
Wonder
that, like,
Woman or something.
or Doctor Who,
Yep.
a decade ago. Things like that, where there was people lined up and excited for it and packing into the room. And now there's still people excited for it, but it doesn't generate the overabundance of people like it used to. So who knows why? Is it the timing? Is it the location? Who knows why that, studios are just less eager to come out to WonderCon. I mean, we used to have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. panels every year that were packed.
Yep.
So I don't know.
It's just, like I said, I just think it's interesting. I did want to mention a couple of panels that folks in the chat have been mentioning. Just Hangin' said that they really enjoy the Animaniacs 30th anniversary. Karen Sessions said the ARC panel was good. And Sarah Y said she went to the Jenny Frizen and Mitch Garrett's panel, and there were not that many people. So, and then like James said, Cherry the Geek really enjoyed Quantum Leap. So lots of good panels this week. So the only other thing before we get into our best of is I want to talk about the food trucks. So like Kim said, yes, I want to talk about the food truck. Shocking. I know. Like Kim said, they laid the tables out differently this year. They did have some tables out last year, but they were more like off to the left, like kind of like behind the truck. This year, it seemed like they were more like in between the trucks, right? How did that work as far as like foot traffic and flow?
It was hard to get through. It was not as bad as I expected. Seeing it originally laid out, that is your main entrance, and you have to kind of do people eating, people in line, which is, it's kind of fun. Once I learned to exit and enter by the arena, which was pretty empty, and still convenient to where I was staying. But, for people, I don't know how you get there from parking, but certainly the vast majority of people are coming through the food truck entrance.
Yes.
It was fine, though. It was fine.
Did you guys eat anything at any of the food trucks?
I had a chicken and rice bowl.
Was it good?
It was delicious. And I had to listen to the preachers doing their thing, which they were fortunately not there for very long.
Good. Yeah.
The loud
Always
speakers.
annoying.
The way they set up the tables, it was, like Kim said, very crowded going through there. But luckily, there was enough room in between the tables, and there was fewer people standing around, waiting in the lines. So the people in lines were backed up against the tables on each side, but through the center was usually much easier going than the outsides.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. The only other thing that I wanted to mention was there were, as there have been for many years, a couple of food trucks over by the arena, and they always just look so sad. Because there's like nobody over there, and I wish I'm happy that they offer more options, but I saw somebody say that maybe those food trucks weren't even there on Saturday, maybe because they got like no foot traffic. It just seems like an odd choice to place.
Yeah, they were there Friday. I don't recall seeing them again that weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they may have been like, there's nobody coming over here.
Because you couldn't enter the arena that way either. It was either people leaving or just completely leaving the convention.
Yeah. So again, I just wanted to say, I always feel like that's an odd choice when they're over there. Okay, let's get in though onto the best. So let's start with you, Kim. What were some of your main highlights of this year?
My main highlight was going to the gaming area for a first time at any one of these conventions and sitting down and being taught how to play a game, playing a game. It was Pathfinders, which is essentially a shorter Dungeons and Dragons like campaign, which I've done kind of a bit, but not really knowing anything about. Just had a wonderful volunteer who taught us what to do, how to pick a character. It's less than an hour of time, so much fun, rolling ones. I failed at a lot of things that I did. But I understand now why people love that. I will be doing more for sure. WonderCon was the perfect place to do that, where you have the time and relaxing area to sit down in. It's nice. It's right at the back of the floor. It was so much fun. Highly recommend it.
WonderCon is awesome because it is like such a more relaxed pace. Like you really like, I mean, we all love San Diego Comic Con, that's why we're here, but it is just like constant hustle. So it's always nice, like at WonderCon, where it's like breathe, like I could get done everything I want to do and still have some free time. So,
and I've gone up. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I've gone up to the Take and Paint before at Comic-Con, and it's up on the mezzanine, but it's a little harder to find. And then that is so much of a time commitment, especially how I want to paint something. So we tried doing it, but then this game was starting. So we're like, let's do that. And shout out, it was John was the DM and volunteer. Was wonderful.
That's awesome. James, what were you going to say?
I was actually looking at the game schedule when I was looking through the schedule, which I usually never do because obviously Comic-Con, you never have time.
Yeah. Who has time?
And I was looking at it, I'm like, I should try, but because I couldn't go on Friday and I had some things I had to get to on both days, I just didn't have the time to sit down and actually do that. Where if I had that extra day on Friday, I probably would have sat down and done the same thing and tried to play a game that I hadn't played before. So that's definitely something that I will look into the next time.
There you go. Well, James, what were some of your highlights from this year?
Well, I already said my main one was seeing Bob Gurr, which was hilarious because I saw him over by the Funko booth first, and he was just standing there, talking on his phone or talking to someone. I'm like, look, it's Bob Gurr. And then he came on the panel, so that was cool. But I mean, it was just, Johnny's going to say the same thing when we read what he said, but it is the relaxed atmosphere, the less feeling like you're stressing to get to so many different things. I enjoyed walking around Artist Alley, just back and forth up and down the aisles, just looking at stuff. I enjoyed doing the prize mule drops, trying to find places for that, without trying to, without stress. It was just like, oh, here's an empty table or here's a corner. Let's go ahead and just set it up and put the prize mule out, get the prize mule done. 2 minutes later, we're done and we go on to whatever we're doing next. And it was just really nice being able to see people again, going to a few different things, seeing a few different things, just basically gathering the experiences that you get when you go to a comic convention and without doing it in a stressful way.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of prize mule, I just want to say again, how cool were those Renfield shirts and glasses? We got
pretty awesome.
A lot of excited people.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
I actually had multiple people that were running when we were giving stuff away. It's like they were like running towards. I'm like, you're the only one near, so you really didn't.
Okay.
But just in case,
it's kind of a
Count Americorn.
I'm looking forward to that movie too because of those t-shirts.
Love it. Okay, well, I did not go to WonderCon, but I did again. I wrote about it for several months and I followed along all weekend on Twitter. So I just want to say that even when I do go, my favorite thing is always the art and the small vendors. And I feel like we had a lot of really awesome things this year from folks like Yesterday's. I really thought they knocked it out of the park. Todd did a great job. Again, all of our artist friends did fantastic work this year. So that's mine. But we got some answers as well from some of our other team members who attended WonderCon but couldn't be here tonight. Johnny, just like James said, he said that his favorite thing is the relaxed vibe, as well as having the fountains as a consistent cosplay gathering / viewing area. And he's totally right. I mean, that fountain area is basically like the heart of the convention. as well as his first time doing prize mule. So the prize mule winner is now the actual prize mule.
Nice.
Sean said a lot of the same things. He said that he really enjoyed the incredible cosplay and some really great comic guests. He loves that the show always has something they want to do. They wish that they had more time, and they were there for all the last couple of hours of Saturday. So they were there for the whole convention, basically. And they also found a whole lot of deals in the comic bins, more deals than they found in previous years. And then Sean also wanted to give a shout out to Knights of the Zodiac, which I know Kim talked about a little bit. But he said, although I'm not really sure that movie is for me, we'll definitely buy tickets to see it because they supported that con in such a big way. They went all in and all seemed so genuinely excited and appreciative of the WonderCon crowd. And that's a huge factor, I feel like, in people's excitement. Like if somebody else is excited, like to be at these conventions, it makes you excited. So
Yes. Anytime you can see a panel where it genuinely feels like they're excited to be there and talking,
yes,
and it doesn't feel like a corporate PR spiel, that is the best panel to see, even if it is a corporate PR spiel, because they're doing it because they want to, and they enjoy what they're doing and working on. They want to share it with you.
Yes, you can absolutely tell, like when it's not just like, here are the talking points that I was given to tell you about.
Just like a family, and we get together, and our hijinks on the set, and what is the best prank that you have ever played?
Yes.
May I give one more best?
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we move on, it was the Hilton, LobbyCon, and the hospitality suite. I love the 10 Forward hospitality suite every year.
I kept waiting for you to say the hospitality suite.
What's that?
I kept waiting for you to say the hospitality suite.
I know I can't. Can't not. Guinan was in there when I went. There were a bunch of the Starfleet cosplayers were in town, and it was perfect. And then you get an assortment of chips and nachos and sodas, and they had Easter candy on the tables, which was kind of a nod to next year. In my brain,
we're back on WonderCon. Yep.
And then people from the Sci-Fi Coalition had made LobbyCon shirts, so that made the LobbyCon a bit more official.
I saw that. It's true. Yeah. If you've never been to WonderCon, like the lobby of the Hilton is like rocking at all hours. So it's a fun place to be. Okay. Well, it can't all be the best. So let's talk about some things that we didn't like at WonderCon this year. And let's just get the very obvious answer out of the way. Like, I know it's everybody's number one, but it's the lack of carpeting. And we're not going to shut up about this. So many people complained about them like giving really plain lanyards this year. And personally, I'm like, I couldn't care less if I tried. Like, you have no sympathy.
We have an assortment of lanyards we can bring from
home. Right? I'm like, if you've been to a convention before, I guarantee you owned a lanyard, and they still gave you a lanyard. Like, it's not like you didn't get a lanyard. So I just don't care about that. Sorry. But the carpeting I do care about, because this actually impacts everyone. Like, the more time you spend on hard floors, like, all of you hurts. It's not just your feet. It's pretty rough. Yeah.
Walking around Artist Alley for a few hours on Sunday, and then all the walking I did on Saturday, and Sunday night was horrible. I'm not in the best shape, of course, but still my feet shouldn't hurt that bad after walking for just a few hours. And so no, it's rough, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see if they have the dinero, the money to splurge on carpeting at Comic-Con or not.
No, you or someone did ask and talk back about the carpeting, right? And I know they gave a very non-answer. But do you want to talk about that?
I didn't ask it officially. I asked it after, when they were just hanging out, talking, where they were like chatting with people. I asked what about it, and they're like, it's just, it's what it is. After the lockdown and missing a few shows, you got to ramp back up. And that's one of the things that will come along when they can.
And then remember, they kind of poo-pooed on Sked coming back, and look what happened this year. So you never know.
That's right. That's right. I'm like, maybe if we all just complain enough, they'll bring back carpet. And I would want to make it very clear that I also like am very aware that the state of conventions right now is not good. I mean, literally today, E3 was canceled. The state of conventions in general is just a little bit rocky because the state of a lot of these industries is a little bit rocky at the moment. So we're all very grateful that Comic-Con International has managed to weather the storm thus far and is still holding these conventions. Like, we're all very grateful for that. But when they do find the money, I hope that their number one thing that they re-implement is carpeting.
Yes.
So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Okay, James, you want to talk a little bit about some other things that you didn't like?
Well, I think the only thing that really bummed me out was I won a lottery slot for Funko, which was awesome. I got a new Groot, which was very cool. And I managed to get Kim a D&D figure, the gelatinous cube.
Yes, thank you. I meant to have it here, but I don't.
When I got in line, because I barely made it, like I was like one of the last people to show up for that time slot. So I was at the end of the line, and I don't know, 10 minutes after I got in line, they did their little show that they do, I think every hour or two or whatever. The clown comes out. They have this little stage in between the sections that were divided for Funko and Loungefly. And they have the prize things. They do a little mini contest, and it lasted, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes at least. And the entire time they were not selling. And so it just lengthened.
Do you know why that was? Like, is it just that like you couldn't hear over the show? Like,
I think it's because it was so loud.
Okay.
And maybe it's because they also wanted to restock. But I mean, they were restocking while they were selling when they did get back to selling. So
That's what they did last year, though, too, right?
What's that?
They did this last year, the mini show.
I don't know, because I didn't go to the booth last year.
Okay.
But I don't know if maybe it was because it was lunchtime and they didn't have as many people hanging around because it was around 12:30, 1 o'clock, and they just had fewer people hanging out, and they didn't want to, they wanted to give everyone a break. It just felt, kind of lame to get in line and then not move for 20 minutes.
And you were not the only person I saw who said that. I saw somebody else who was like, "Help, I'm being held hostage at the Funko booth," like, because it just hadn't moved in so long. Yeah, I mean,
and
sure.
Afterwards, it moved pretty good afterwards, once. But I mean, there was like 4 rows of people in front of me when it stopped, and I just stand there, and that's of course no carpeting, so standing on cement.
Yeah. Kim, what about you? Was there anything that you wish had been different this year?
Just we already talked about it, the lack of kind of the bigger panels, which would bring in the crowds. And we used to have movie screenings, but now there's no theater nearby.
Yep.
So that kind of puts a damper on that. But just like missing that a little bit. And when it was up in San Francisco, we went to a 6-month early screening of Watchmen. It was big stuff like that. And there was a Watchmen panel the next day. And of course the offsites,
Yeah.
We haven't had them in a long time, but that I can remember, but there were at one point in Anaheim.
Yeah, there for sure were. I know. I've been trying to think. There was a screening for A Quiet Place a couple years back. I think that was before the theater closed. And then a couple years back, that Tolkien movie had a screening, but it was like drive 10 miles this way to the theater. And it was like, who's going to do this?
Which is crazy because the Garden Walk has a theater still, don't they?
I don't think there's one there.
Not at Downtown Disney. That one closed down, but the Garden Walk had an AMC theater as well. I thought, at least they did a couple years ago because I went to it. But I don't know. I mean, it's just, I thought there was one that was closer, but that Century that they went to for whatever that was like 10 miles away or whatever. It's crazy.
Well, our chat has confirmed that Funko did have a show last year, just in case anyone was curious. And also, Kim, I think this is Andy. He said that he admires your earrings.
Thank you, Andy. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Okay. I remember liking the Funko show last year, and I had my kids with me too, so that made it different. But it would certainly be nice if they still kept those registers going for anyone who wanted to keep moving, because that would move. Everyone's waiting for that. Everyone's still in line.
Yeah.
So I hear you there. And that's our kind of one big major booth that we had.
Yes, it was. All right. Anything else that we wish was a little bit different this year?
Not really. I mean,
I think lots of positives, lots
Yeah.
of great improvements.
Speaking of positives, I feel like we did not mention one of the biggest positives of all, which is that SCED is back.
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
course.
So hallelujah for that. And let's hope that it's back for San Diego Comic Con as well. I think it
Knock
will
on
be.
wood.
Knock on wood. But yes, that is a huge positive. So
Yes. It's
Thank
great.
you,
And getting that
CCI, for
email
that.
each morning with your schedule and being
I
able
missed
to.
it. I was using
Yeah.
the app all weekends because I had it on my phone from.
and it's usable. Yeah.
Yeah. I used it too. When I couldn't figure out where Artist Alley was, I'm like, what am I? Oh, this is small press. And then, we have to go to the other side of the show.
Amazing technology.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we have a couple of answers again from the rest of our team. So Johnny wanted to say that Kim kind of touched on this, that unless there's a panel or a signing that you can't miss, it felt like a 2-day event. And he says, arguably even one. He said, considering I didn't go Friday, showed up 3 hours after opening on Saturday, skipped out about 3 hours on Sunday to watch basketball, and I still did not feel like I missed out on anything. Although writing that out, that resulted in the relaxed vibe that I enjoyed. So maybe it's not a bad thing.
Exactly. It's
And
it's a good and a bad thing. I mean,
it is, yeah.
obviously the CCI putting on the show wants everyone to enjoy themselves and have a bunch of stuff for people to do, and I think they
Yeah.
did. It's just I think there was less people than there used to be 5 years ago, and I think that they've just the types of people going have just altered slightly.
Yeah, I think so too. And I do think that, again, I know we've talked about this, but I feel like because there are just less like giant studio type panels, that it just sort of feels like there's a little bit less to do. And don't get me wrong, there's still amazing panels throughout. Like you can absolutely find amazing panels. And my favorite thing to do at WonderCon is just to wander the floor. So you can totally like fill your time, but there are, again, just a little bit less of what there used to be.
Yeah.
Sean said the lack of carpet again, and he also said that Hilton and the Marriott continuing to not offer enough food options for conventions like this. And I will say, Sean is on the record as not understanding food trucks. So he much prefers like the food options, like you said, over in the Hilton and the Marriott, and they've all just kind of got weird hours and they close early.
They closed real early.
They also don't even have a restaurant or a place in all of the different sections. There used to be like 6, I think, in the Hilton, 5 or 6 different places. And I think last time we went I think it was D23 last year, there was like 2 or 3.
Yeah, it's a little
So it's not
sad.
even full anymore.
Yeah.
I did eat at
Okay.
the restaurant in the Hilton, and it was good. It was not terrible prices. I ate in the Marriott too, and their sports bar.
There you go.
So those are viable options. There's just not a lot.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and again, I mean, you're not that far from like Disney, so there's tons of food options like in the general vicinity if you just are willing to walk a little bit. But yeah, if you just want like a quick bite, something somewhere close, especially if you're staying in one of the hotels, it for sure would be nice if those options would just extend their hours a little bit. Okay, anything else we want to say on WonderCon?
I think based on what's happening these days, and which, if you look at the convention scene, which ones are probably doing better than others is the anime panel, anime convention.
Yes, for sure.
So if WonderCon, if they wanted to maybe increase numbers again, just on that level of just let's get more people in here, they need to court the anime companies and bring in a lot more anime type of vendors and programming, and make sure that those where people are hanging out online and whatnot know that convention is going to be increasing that presence. That's about the only thing I can think of, because everything else, it's just they need to they would just, as people come back and as Hollywood decides they want to do more things at conventions again, and get back into that groove and figure out, if it's worth spending the money on big panels and big booths, that's going to happen. But right now, the anime conventions are still just going strong. So bring in some of that. Maybe that's a way to get the attendance back up.
For sure. And it does feel that CCI, at least at San Diego Comic-Con, has like started to embrace more stuff like that. I think Crunchyroll sponsored, at least in part, some stuff with CCI yesterday, and obviously Crunchyroll, had those big concerts out at the Radio Shelf last year. So it would be nice if some more of those groups also started doing some things at WonderCon. It makes sense. Okay, well, if that is it for WonderCon, we've got some news on San Diego Comic-Con.
What?
Already? I know. We've actually had quite a bit of news here in the last month, including several offsites, which is why it's fitting that we've got Kim here, who is outside Comic-Con. So, Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about any of these?
Stand by. Let me find it. No, you go ahead, because I can't find it right now.
Okay.
It's not in my brain.
That's
not
totally
in that mentality yet.
Okay, so one of the big things that got announced is that Jeff Goldblum is going to be doing a concert at the Balboa Theater, and it's not just a performance. He also does like trivia in between songs, and he takes Q&As. He does this all the time out in LA. So if you're familiar at all with that, I'm assuming this is going to be pretty much the same thing, but it's a cool, much more intimate way to see Jeff Goldblum at the convention. And that is going to be on Thursday at 8 p.m. at the Balboa. And then there's also a Jimmy Eat World concert, as well as Manchester Orchestra, happening on Friday, the 21st at what time?
At time o'clock.
At time o'clock. At 7 p.m. And that will be at the park at Petco Park. And Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about where that location actually is? Because I think people often get very confused by that.
That is what have we seen there? So that's it's just the grassy area of outside Petco. And they have a lovely stage all set up, and you can see it because the grassy hill is very steep. So, you go in there, throw a towel down, you get a great view. It doesn't, we had, there was like a carnival there.
Wasn't it Impractical Jokers block party?
Yeah. Yes. But it also, what it does is allow for the rest of Petco could still be usable. Yes, should something else want to go in, hint, hint, nudge, nudge, like where Nerd HQ was in the 13-14 era.
Yes.
That is still wide open, separated from the park and the park stage.
The one thing that I think we do want to mention is I feel like parking on Friday night in particular is going to be a mess with that happening.
Yeah.
So whenever parking goes on sale, especially for Friday, I would make sure that you sign up for Ace's Lottery and that you prepay for your parking on, again, Friday in particular, because I just feel like this concert is going to bring in a lot of locals. All right.
Okay. Sorry, I was just going to say Petco Park always does a great job of, requesting that the locals take our trolley system or public transit.
Yes.
So hopefully that gets used a lot.
Yes, for sure. There are also a couple of shows, as there have been for many years now, for the Adventure Zone, and then My Brother and Me. The Adventure Zone is Friday at Balboa at 7 p.m. and My Brother is at Balboa at 7 p.m. on Saturday. So 2 nights back to back of that. And then probably the one that people are most excited about is the D23 Hellfire Gala happening on Saturday. We don't know where, we don't know what time, we don't know anything else about it, basically.
Well, maybe it's a good thing that they didn't announce a time that they then have to change 3 times.
Well, I mean, they've announced Saturday, so we'll see if that stays true. Yeah, I don't know if you guys remember the debacle, but I think we determined the last 2 years actually they've announced the wrong date. So feel Good times.
Yeah.
Good
And we also
times.
have,
Okay.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was actually going to ask you. Okay, so because everyone has just been so excited about this, it makes me just a little bit nervous because I have heard very mixed things about the last couple D23 events. And Kim, I know you went to the Tron one last year. So will you just talk a little bit about that?
So that was at the House of Blues, right?
Yep.
Am I going
Yes.
crazy?
No.
House of Blues. It was, great to see them using Tron Legacy, which I loved. We did not get that secret Daft Punk concert that was rumored in 2009. But it was just, there wasn't a big line for food. You got one drink. It was a ticket price of $65 or $75. And I usually say, I don't pay for tickets during Comic-Con, but the Tron Legacy won me over. But it was just kind of meh. People sitting around, a few people dancing at the DJ, but you wandered the few floors. And then it was time to move on to the next thing at Comic-Con, which it made it not worth the $65.
So again, I know everybody is really excited about this, and I hope that it's amazing, but I just want everybody's expectations to maybe be a little bit tempered here, just because, again, D23's events in the past, they've been fun, is what I've heard, or they've been fun and fine. But I don't know that they've ever like blown it out of the park with something that everyone's been like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. So just be aware of that. You want to add anything to that,
hopefully they
James?
have a little more immersion than the a few bits of Tron.
You look like you want to add something to that, James.
No, I mean, just D23 is sometimes just
D23.
they're just D23.
Yep.
I love
Okay.
them, and they confound me, and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just want to get that off my chest. And Fredo in the chat said, don't forget the Funko Funko Fun on the Run on Wednesday. And I did not forget, but I would also like to remind you that we talked about that long ago when it was first announced. But we did get some more information from WonderCon, which is basically that it looks like it's on Wednesday. They only announced Wednesday, so is it going to be Wednesday only? I mean, it feels like it is. So
It's like a
It's
5K
probably-
situation.
I would assume that it's going to tie in. They're going to have whatever booth stuff they have tie into it, but the actual truck is probably only going to be that one day, and then they have to do all of their actual con stuff.
Yes, I think so too. And I am really curious actually to see like how this works. Like, are they gonna like do their truck outside, like at the interactive zone or somewhere else? Like how and where is this gonna work?
Or over at Rady Shell
Yeah, maybe.
down that road.
Because we already know that they're using the radio show on Friday for Funko Fun Days. So I'm just very curious to see what the logistics of this are, but we'll know more soon. Patrick Ballesteros, who, if you have read our site before, you probably know who that is, but his commissions open on Monday. And I think we do know of a couple of other folks who already have San Diego Comic-Con commissions open. So it's that time of year to slowly start planning. So keep an eye out here in the next couple of days for our SDCC commissions posts that Andy puts together every year, and it's awesome. So we'll be launching that. And then the question that everybody wants to know about San Diego Comic-Con is, when is the hotel and we do not know.
The always trademarked soon.
Soon. I fully expect news here. I don't know if it'll be tomorrow, but I think by the end of next week, I think we will probably have heard a date. I'm fully expecting the sale to be in April because it's almost always in April. And they usually don't give a ton of notice, but they will give some notice and won't be like, hey, the sale's happening right now. And again, for anybody who does not remember, the way that this works is basically on a weekday, not a weekend, because I've seen some people misremembering that, but on a weekday, it will, assuming it works like it has in the past, we'll all hop into a Qubit waiting room. And then at the time when the sale actually starts, they'll randomize us all. We'll get put through to fill out a form with our hotel requests. And then you just kind of hope and pray for a week until they tell you what you actually got. It's based on when you actually gain access to the form, not submission. And the whole thing is over in about 10 minutes because by that point they've had more submissions than they have hotels and they close it.
And then months later, there'll be hotels opening again. Just because.
Yes. Yeah. So I say this all the time on Twitter, but even though this hotel sale is awful and it's probably the most stressful thing that we as attendees do the entire year, like I feel like this is more stressful than badge sales that I always have. The thing is, there are always hotels when the desk clears. Yes, they will assign the hotels in round 1 and then in round 2, and then they'll say like, you were not placed. But when some people don't pay their deposits, hotels are then released again. And as people cancel, those hotels are also released again. Hotels always open up later. Always. There has never been a year where like there have just been no hotels. So if you are patient, if you do not get something, if you are willing to wait and live with the stress for a little bit longer, you will get something. So don't panic about like you're gonna have to go sleep under a bridge somewhere. Like that's not gonna happen. It's gonna be okay.
If you want to.
Please don't. Please don't do that. I mean, we hear every year of people sleeping in their cars, but don't do that unless you have to, please.
All right. So that's basically it for the WonderCon wrap up and the bits of SDCC news that we have. So do we have any random site news maybe?
Not really at the moment. We are in the process of revamping our website a little bit, and I think that will be launching at some point in April as well. And our site's just going to look a little bit different, but it's going to function a lot in the same way. And then I also wanted to mention that we have a Patreon. So if you appreciate the things that we as a team do for you guys, we make no money off what we do, any money, no money. All the money that we do goes back into things like prize mule or t-shirts for you guys or maintenance for the site. So like our hosting bill, things like that, but we make no money. So if you appreciate the things that we do, we would love if you would join our Patreon. The link to that is on the sidebar of our site. And then, James, I think you have some announcements about when they will hear from us next.
Yes. So the next season of the SDConCast leading up to Comic-Con 2023 will begin in 6 weeks. The second week of May, every Tuesday, we'll be here with all of the news and exclusives and special guests leading up to Comic-Con 2023 in July. That is May 9th. Will be the first episode of, I think, season 12, maybe season 13, somewhere in that neighborhood, roughly. You know, somewhere.
We've been doing this in a few years.
It's been a while. So yeah, so that's something to look forward to. So in 6 weeks, we'll get it started. We'll kick it off for a new season.
Yep. And we've already got some really fun and different guest ideas for you guys. So we're excited about that. You can sign up for our newsletter. And the link to do that is also on the sidebar of our site. And we do actually send out our newsletter during actual SDCC season. I mean, probably not until June, but we do send it. So sign up now.
So thank you all for joining us, for tuning in, listening, watching. Kim, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I'm coughing. I'm sorry. I am Outside Comic-Con on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much for having me. Carrie, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter at Carrie Dixon. And James, what about you? Where can we find more of your work on the internet?
I am everywhere at Dan Riegel, and you can check out geekshotphoto.com for photography and social media links and all that. And I am actually on a new podcast called The Citizens of Lorcana, where me and my buddy Jared, are taking a journey going to learn about trading card games and playing the new Disney trading card game coming out in August called Lorcana. And it's all about how we learn how to play and all the things that are in that world, because it's something that I really have not done. So if you're interested to hear what's going on there, just check it out. Citizens of Lorcana. Everywhere where your favorite podcast would be. And thank you to Beth, our producer. She will be editing the show and getting it into your ears and all the other things to get this podcast done. You can follow her on Instagram at TrekkieBeth and see all those awesome photos that she takes at Comic-Con and other conventions.
We are on iTunes. If you'd like to subscribe, the links are up on the blog, or you can search for SDConCast. If you like what you've heard so far, please review us. We are also on Stitcher Radio, and the link is in the show notes. And we are on Spotify now these days, but I don't think that I have told Beth to add that to the show notes. So I don't think that is in the in the post. But if you just go to Spotify and search for SDConCast, you will find us.
There you go. If you want to get a hold of us, you can send us an email at sdcomiccon.blog@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sdconblog, or tweet us at sd_comic_con. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and everybody go short. Carpeting.
It's true, though. It's all